North Korea has been in the news a lot lately, and I wanted to break down everything that's going on, separate fact from fiction, and to help us do that, we are joined by a true expert in the field, Bruce Klingner. He's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He spent 20 years at my old spot, the CIA, but he spent a lot more time there than I did. Mr. Klingner, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's just start with, why is North Korea getting all this attention? There was maybe Kim Jong-un is dead, maybe he's really sick. Oh, wait, no, he's not. What happened, and where are we now on that?
Well, as you point out, there are an awful lot of rumors, everything from he's dead, he's brain dead, he's incapacitated, from a heart attack, a failed heart operation, even from a failed missile launch that he was observing. At the other end, U.S., South Korea, and Chinese officials are saying he's fine, either because we see nothing unusual in North Korea, or some would say they have information that he's fine. The bottom line is we don't know. When I worked North Korea at CIA, it was the hardest of the hard targets. In retrospect, before that, I had worked the Soviet Union, which was an open book compared to North Korea. So, on the one hand, there's nothing unusual that we can see. There's no real hard information on Kim's condition. There have been many reports, false reports over the years of failing health or death of Kim, as well as the two predecessors, and then they came out, reemerged fine. So those of us who have been watching for a long time, we tend to be fairly conservative in jumping to conclusions. We've been through a lot of these rumors. So they may be true, he may be toes up on a slab, but it could also be yet another instance of false rumors, and he just reemerges either after recuperating or he was never in sickness at all.
And what would be the succession plan if such a thing really even is known or exists? There was a lot of internet chatter over the weekend about the possibility of his sister taking over, who is kind of a known quantity because of the Olympics some time ago. But what would happen if Kim Jong-un dropped dead of a heart attack tomorrow?
Well, again, the answer is we don't know. There's no formal succession plan in the North Korean Constitution, as there wasn't when Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, died in 2011. There may be a plan behind the scenes, either standing or an ad hoc in case he was going in for a heart procedure. So we're all trying to assess. I think up until a couple years ago, the view was that a traditional Confucian society like North Korea wouldn't have a woman leader. But in the last 2 years, Kim's sister has come out of the shadows. She's gained authority. She's gained stature. She really led the delegation to South Korea for the Olympics 2 years ago. Even though others nominally were higher ranking, she clearly was in charge. So I think right now she has the inside track because she's a Kim family member. Others will point to an uncle of Kim Jong-un, but he was really exiled for 30 years in Eastern Europe, and he only came back recently. So I think right now it would appear to be the sister, but again, we don't know.
And what's the concern if there was a death? I mean, there were some people obviously who were celebrating this a bit prematurely celebrating, and as we now know, because who knows what even is going on with Kim Jong-un. But is there a great, would it be a good thing from the perspective of geopolitics and international relations if Kim Jong-un died, or are there too many unknowns that maybe it's a devil situation versus whoever could come after him? I mean, how would we assess that right now? Is it an opportunity if he dies? Well, is it a possible collapse?
Sort of all of the above. No one outside of North Korea is going to shed a tear if this brutal dictator, who, according to the UN, is a purveyor of crimes against humanity, if he passes away. But there will be concern by the United States, as well as South Korea and Japan, our critical allies, about uncertainty in succession. There's the fear of an explosion, and that North Korea may lash out at its neighbors, either because of a perceived threat from outside or to create a rally around the flag effect for succession, or an implosion of regime collapse, regime instability, a power struggle, civil war, who's got control of the nuclear weapons. So all of those are very real concerns. There's going to be a lot of visibility by the U.S. and its allies, the military and intelligence communities on what's going on. That said, we had the same concerns when the two previous leaders passed away, and the system worked, and that the regime maintained itself, and the anointed successor did succeed, even though many had predicted they would fail.
What do we know about, and by the way, we're speaking to Bruce Klingner. He is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, 20 years spent before that at the Central Intelligence Agency. Bruce, what do we know about how North Korea is handling the coronavirus situation, considering that they're right next door to China? China had this terrible outbreak. One of the only countries really that has consistent commerce with North Korea is China. So do we know? Again, we know it's a black box to some degree, but have we seen any indicators that they've had this disease spread within their borders?
North Korea still officially says they've had no cases whatsoever. None of us believe that because all of the neighboring countries had it. But right after the outbreak in China, they imposed some pretty strong containment measures. They cut off really contact with the outside world. They canceled flights from Beijing and Moscow. They closed the border with China. And they even cracked down on state-run smuggling, which had been a way of gaining money for the regime to try to circumvent UN sanctions. So the border with China is still a bit porous, but it has really been cracked down on. So there are sources inside North Korea that says there have been deaths, there have been cases, but we're not seeing real indications of widespread death or disease as one might have expected. So perhaps they were able to dodge a bullet on COVID. And there are indications that some schools in Pyongyang are starting to reopen.
So being the hermit kingdom, as it's called in this case, might have actually been something of an advantage, being such an isolated place. The isolation may have paid off for them in that regard. How is the Trump administration overall at this point? How would you assess how they've done in dealing with North Korea? Just sort of taking a step back, we're going to be heading into an election this fall. Trump had all this outreach to Kim Jong-un. Now he's back in the headlines because of what may have been some health issues. Again, we don't know, as you've established. But has Trump had the right approach? Do we have anything to show for now going into year 4 of a new tactic or new tactics when it comes to North Korea?
We've made absolutely no progress on denuclearization or getting any kind of change in North Korean behavior. Recently, North Korea has said they are not interested in any working level or even summit level meetings with President Trump unless we basically capitulate on our denuclearization policy. So, I wasn't a supporter of the idea of the summit diplomacy. I'm more of a traditionalist in the idea of you actually make progress at the working level and work up to a summit where you sign an agreement. But at least it did put to the test the idea that many people had of if only the leaders from the two countries could get together, only the North Korean leader can make a decision, so therefore we'd have a breakthrough. Well, we've tested that hypothesis and found it false. So, I think there's a lot that I've been critical of the Trump administration on North Korea, but no administration or president has a monopoly on good or bad ideas when it comes to North Korea. So what we have to do is have a truly maximum pressure policy. That we have not had that, despite the moniker. We've been holding back on enforcing our own laws as well as UN sanctions. We've been curtailing military exercises for 2 years on the Korean Peninsula. And right now we're engaged in some very torturous negotiations with South Korea over their compensation for U.S. forces. I don't think the U.S. should be demanding exorbitant increases, a 5-fold increase, as the administration is. I think we should accept a incremental increase, because right now we need to be shoulder to shoulder with our allies, not bickering over nickels and dimes when we face common threats, not only from North Korea, but also China.
Bruce Klingner of the Heritage Foundation and formerly of the CIA. Bruce, thank you so much for your expertise, sir. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Team, I've got to tell you, I just started with it, and Jack Carr's Savage Son is amazing. You've got to go download the Savage Son audiobook. It's the latest in best-selling author Jack Carr's Terminal List series. The Savage Son explodes with action and authenticity. Jack Carr's a former SEAL. He knows what he's talking about with this stuff, and he explores the darkest instincts of humanity through the eyes of a man who has seen both the best and the worst of it. You got to check out Savage Son, available wherever audiobooks are sold. I'm telling you, even just the first chapter where you have the hunt of a human being underway, it's stunningly well written. It grips you. The action is intense. It's a great way to spend some time these days in quarantine. Listen to Jack Carr's Savage Son, the audiobook you can download now anywhere you can get audiobooks. Savage Son, the latest in Jack Carr's Terminal List series. Download that audiobook. And also remember, the audiobook is read by Ray Porter, so it's fantastic quality. Check it out. Savage Son. Download it today. Big tweet out from Maria Bartiromo over the weekend. Breaking news, sources tell me General Flynn will be completely exonerated this week. It was a total fraud, a setup. More tomorrow. I guess that was yesterday on Sunday. Oh, wow. You mean that the primary, other than Manafort, the primary justification in terms of criminal prosecution that was successful for so much of the Russia collusion nonsense, right? This is what they would point to. Oh, look at General Flynn, convicted felon General Flynn. Look at all the criminality that we found here. No, you mean you manufactured. It was disgusting what they did to General Flynn. Let's just review for a moment, shall we? He's the incoming National Security Advisor, former chief of the Defense Intelligence Agency, had spent 30 years working as part of the United States military, serving in uniform. He was a decorated veteran, and he was one of the early national security allies of the Trump administration, which made him hated by the deep state national security establishment, as we know. And he's coming in during the transition. He's the incoming National Security Advisor. And what do Sally Yates at DOJ and Comey over at FBI and this whole cabal that we know, what do they decide to do? They take criminally leaked information by Ignatius over the Washington Post, and they're now looking into, and I hope the Durham investigation finds who leaked that stuff and sends them to prison for a good 4 or 5 years. That's probably what you get for that. Maybe you get 3-4 years in a deal. But, I mean, you're going to get real prison time for leaking TS information to the press like that. And some of you would say, well, no, Buck, you should get 10. Look at Reality Winner or whatever her name is. She got 10 years, right? I mean, so you can get some real time for leaking a top secret intercept like that to the press for partisan purpose. They got to make a really strong example of that person. Guess what? It's going to be somebody who liked Obama a lot, probably would vote for Biden now, or definitely would vote for Biden now, and hates Trump. So they might be able to find out who this is. I certainly hope they do find out who it is. And that would be a big missing piece of all this. But also remember that they used the Logan Act to have a sit-down conversation with General Flynn and then pretended that it wasn't really a friendly conversation between the National Security Advisor and the FBI. And people were telling us, all the experts who told you, oh, but he should know better. These people are morons, okay? This was as clear a setup as anything could ever be. I've told you that all along. Those who have been listening to me for years here on the show know that I knew exactly what game they were playing with this. They got him on a 1001 violation. Now it turns out there was a side deal that they would not disclose where they would withhold charges, or they would refrain from charges against his son if he pleaded guilty. So what they did is they jammed him up, and they made sure that he had no chance to take this to trial. If he took it to trial, they were going to annihilate him and his family members. And for what? You'd say, for lying about what? He didn't even do anything illegal. So they're going to get him for not lying about criminal conduct, but just misremembering a conversation that he has with 2 FBI guys. Remember, Andy McCabe lied, very, very much so under oath, but he's FBI and he's connected to the deep state folks, and so he didn't get charged. No criminal charges. How is that possible? The guy lied under oath. Well, it doesn't count. So we see the double standard, just like the double standard with Kavanaugh. I mean, this is the way that the left, the deep state, dishonest people always have to have malleable standards, because that's the only way they'll be able to get what they want. Because if a standard is applied consistently and universally, then it's clear that they're going to run on the wrong side of it at some point because they're bad people. So what do? They use rules against us, and then they have no rules for themselves. This is a piece from Sean Davis in the Federalist, just from a couple days ago. New court documents filed under seal include significant exculpatory information about Michael Flynn. The new documents, which were filed under seal by the Justice Department on Friday, allegedly include exonerating evidence about Flynn, who pleaded guilty to lying to federal investigators about conversations with foreign diplomats as Trump's top incoming foreign policy advisor, and is currently attempting to withdraw his plea, as well as evidence of malfeasance by the FBI during its investigation of Flynn. According to the FBI official who spoke to the Federalist, FBI General Counsel Dan Bonte led the charge internally against DOJ's disclosure of new materials. Bonte, who briefly served as acting attorney general after Trump became president, personally signed off on one of the federal spy warrants against former Trump campaign affiliate Carter Page. The new documents, which were filed under a protective order by DOJ on Friday, will reflect poorly on the FBI, the official told the Federalist. It is not clear when or even if those documents will be unsealed and made to the public. Because the documents were filed under seal, the Federalist has not been able to review them independently. Multiple investigative reports issued by the DOJ Inspector General revealed myriad instances of corruption by FBI officials throughout the multi-year investigation of Trump and his former campaign. My friends, the fix was in from the beginning. This was a disgusting miscarriage of justice. They knew that Flynn didn't lie. As we know from the initial report, the FBI didn't believe that Flynn lied, but then they were pushed to amend that for some reason to get leverage. Oh, now they got him on this. This is the classic FBI maneuver, just so you know. When they want to get you on something, they always look to get you on a 1001 violation. And then that becomes the lever they use to get everything else they want. So you think you're in a position to fight against something. You think that they've got the wrong guy, but guess what? They don't have to prove that their initial suspicion of you for criminal conduct was correct. All they have to do is get you in a 1001 lying to FBI, and now you're facing 5 years. Now you'll do whatever they say. You'll plea. You'll rat on other people. You won't just, to borrow from who was it that was saying this all the time? Alan Dershowitz up at Harvard about all this stuff. He said that they won't just sing, they'll compose, meaning they won't just tell tales, they'll make them up as they go along about whatever they think that the officials want to hear. So, here we go. And the Federalist just an hour ago published Robert Mueller's case against Michael Flynn is about to implode. New facts in the Michael Flynn investigation call into question the voluntariness of Flynn's plea. Judge Sullivan should dismiss the charges to send a clear message. Outrageous prosecutorial coercion will not be tolerated. My friends, this needs to happen. We need justice here. I've been saying all along that General Flynn should be, I've said it on Twitter, I've been very open that he should be pardoned, that the president should pardon him. In a sense, I guess now I might end up being happy I did not get my request, because he may be not just pardoned, but he may be exonerated, meaning that they vacate his plea, and the judge vacates his plea and says, we are sorry, and sends him on his way, because this is appalling. His legal team is trying to withdraw the guilty plea right now. The more they find out about this, they keep trying to hide the information. The more information that comes out, the more clear it is that they railroaded this guy. They basically made up a crime, made him plead to it, or else they're going to destroy him and his son. And now they're trying to hide what they did. You know why they did all this? Because he was tied to Trump, and because the deep state didn't like that somebody else came along and was in power who wasn't one of theirs. Going to get to some roll call. Want to check in with producer Mark over in the penalty box. My friend, how was your weekend?
Great. How was yours?
It was all right. What'd you watch?
We started a new show called Silicon Valley on HBO. I don't know if you ever watched it.
Amazing show.
Yeah, great show.
Great show. I've had a feeling you guys would both like that one. That's a great one.
Yeah, We're
Highly,
really
highly
enjoying it. We're in like season 3, I think. It's a quick show, only 25 minutes or so an episode.
Yes, you can burn through episodes real fast,
Yeah.
but it's good. And, you know, people that I know who are in that Silicon Valley world, I mean, the real thing, say that there's a lot of truth in that show. That a lot of the silly stuff is really based on real stuff, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
It's
that
very-
doesn't
I think
surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's very clever. Well, I'm glad, man. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I saw a movie called Extraction. I also watched a bit of The Crown with the Snow Princess. We had a very nice time. The Crown is great, by the way. I didn't think I would like it. A fantastic show. But I saw this movie, Extraction. I watched this one solo while the Snow Princess was doing other things. The movie Extraction is, I've never seen a movie with so little plot and so little dialogue and so many people getting shot. It's like nothing else. I mean, at least the movie Commando, all the violence kind of comes at the end. But Schwarzenegger's Commando, which if you haven't seen, is a great old action flick. It's all building to just one long continuous shootout at the end where he just keeps switching weapons, and it's ridiculous and it's amazing. And it's a great, great movie. Let off some steam, Bennett. It's a great movie. This movie, there's just a lot of shooting pretty much the whole time, and it's just one guy who kills so many people that he makes John Wick look like a pacifist. It's the guy who plays Thor in the Avengers movies.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah. He's just running around lighting up dudes all over the place. I've never seen so many people get shot in a movie, I think, by one person. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. It's pretty astonishing. Was it entertaining? Yes. Could I write a better script in 10 minutes? Probably. So there's that. Anyway,
Well,
that
what a
was
great
my
recommendation.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling. Look, it's a review, not a recommendation. I'm just saying
true,
this is what
yeah.
this week I'm very excited because I have The Last Kingdom to get to. I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred. It's going to be amazing. I'm very pleased about that. So, The Last Kingdom is a great show, and I'm going to be watching The Last Kingdom, which will be a lot of fun. All right, here we go. TJ writes, Buck, today here in Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds is announcing her plan to reopen the state. We never had a shelter in place. Amongst those plans, it's already been stated that farmers markets will be allowed to reopen, but food vendors only. And people are being encouraged to mask up and only send one family member with no kids. I can't help but notice some of my more left-leaning acquaintances are taking issue with this. However, I'm sure these same people go to an indoor box store grocer to get their groceries weekly or bi-weekly, but God forbid we have an open-air market where we can get our food from our small business neighbors without being confined to the 8-foot-wide grocery store aisles. I can't decide if those people just haven't thought this through or if they just would rather not see a GOP governor be successful in reopening the state. Yeah, I think that, first of all, outdoor markets are probably safer than indoor markets. We all know that. And I do believe that there was a surge. I know there were outdoor hospitals they set up during the Spanish flu pandemic, but I think they also started to move a lot of things outdoors as much as possible because just fresh air, sunlight, as we know, these are good things. These things kill the virus. As for people who don't want there to be success on this, yeah, we're going to see some of that. I wish it was not the case, but there are people that would rather be right than have us return to a greater degree of normalcy. There are people that would prefer to be correct than to have things go better for all of us. Eric, hey, Buck, I've been listening to your podcast since back when you were on The Blaze. Well, thank you, Eric. You've been a part of my routine daily at work. I work as a lead custodian, so luckily I'm still working. It seems to me that people are happy to stay home and collect money from the government, especially since most people are making more on unemployment. Why can't people work with masks like I'm forced to every day? I'm starting to feel like there's something going on behind the scenes. I'm not a big conspiracy theory kind of guy. People really hate Trump, though, and I'm starting to think deep state Democrats and the media might be up to something. Eric. Well, Eric, first of all, thank you for continuing to do what you do and making sure that, places are, wherever it is you're working as a custodian, that it's clean and sanitary, and that really is, these days, more important than ever. And just that you're showing up and continue to be productive, you deserve a big high five for that. And as for why can't other folks work with masks on, I think that's what we're heading for. I think there will be more people that are working with masks. So that's going to become more normal. That's going to become an expectation that we all have in our offices, in our jobs. I think you might have an increase in social distancing in the office too, meaning that desks will have to be further apart. I mean, I remember when I worked in the CIA, we were in a shared cubicle situation And it just felt like we were all on top of each other. I mean, it was just so tight in there. And that was, I'm not talking about overseas where you expect if you're in a war zone, you're going to be in tight quarters. I mean, here stateside. So I think they're going to have a shift away from all of that. And yeah, mask wearing is going to become very normal in the office, which, I mean, a lot of masks are not comfortable. I think people forget this. If you put on one of those N95 respirator masks, for example, you find that they're really tight on your face. They're not fun to have on. So, yeah, man, I think that's where we're heading. And Eric, thank you so much for writing in, and thank you for listening since I was on the Blaze, man. That's going back now. I haven't been on the Blaze in 4 years. Robert Buck, I listen to you on podcast. This is Rob from VA. Wanted to ask why Iraq was such a bad foreign policy decision. Looking back at 9/11 and not knowing what was going to happen next, and Saddam was a bad guy and Iran was even worse, we go into Afghanistan, we liberate Iraq, and wow, looks like Iran is in the middle. Do you think this could have been a factor in going into Iraq? It didn't work out the way we wanted, and the media and the Democrats are at fault. I'm still in uniform, and you stay on the radio. First heard you on the Rush Show. Stay safe. Well, Robert, I appreciate you listening to me fill in for the great man himself, Mr. Rush Limbaugh, the greatest living radio host. And as for why Iraq is a bad decision, I think you just look at the consequences of this and what we gained versus what we lost in that whole process. So I think the moment you do that, you start to see that there was a cost-benefit analysis that would go in a very different direction now that we actually have the inputs, the factors, the numbers. We would have a very different approach to it. I think that they believed at the time, and I remember this, and I remember I worked in the Iraq office of the CIA, so I could also go back and look at a lot of the historical documents from that office, as I did, and I had access to pretty much every piece of classified information that the CIA's Iraq office had. So with that, I mean, I can just tell you that the expectations for what were going to happen there in that country were very different from the outcome. There really was a belief, and this is well known, this is all across the media as well, and people understand this, but there really was a belief throughout government that, or at least in a lot of places within the government that were making decisions, that we would come along and the Iraqis would be happy that he was gone, and then this would serve as a model. This was the pitch, was that it would serve as a model for other Middle Eastern states, and it just turned out to not be the case, that they would take to this the way that we thought that they perhaps would. It was not the case that this led to a series of flowering democracies throughout the Middle East. And when you look at it in that context, and we also had to keep fighting the war on terror, and Afghanistan is still ongoing now, and we still have troops in Iraq. You look at these decisions, I just think it's very hard in retrospect to think that that decision in particular to go into Iraq, knowing what we know now, I think it's clear it was a bad idea. If we were in the same circumstances and you're asked using the same data as you were at that point in time, would you end up with the same result? That's a more complicated question. That's a more difficult thing for us to figure out. So I leave it to you, but thank you for your service, Robert, and thanks so much for listening to the show. Kelly, I just heard part of the conversation about parents homeschooling. I may have misunderstood, but my opinion about parents homeschooling, and I see it with a lot of my stressed out friends with their homeschooling, they don't have the education to help with math, especially among other subjects. Students aren't getting the benefits of actually teachers. It's not the same, and kids need to be back to school eventually when it's safe. Hey, Kelly, I'm not opposed to kids going back to school. I just think that the effort to malign homeschooling, and my friend Inez Felcher, who joined us last week, made this pretty clear, I think, when she said, look, this is not homeschooling. This is shelter in place with your kids and try to teach them some stuff. Actual homeschoolers, of which there are a couple of million in the country, that the teachers set up before, the parents set up beforehand to be better teachers, to make sure they know what the curriculum is, that make sure they understand what they're going to be teaching ahead of time, and they're also setting up activities and all kinds of other things. So this is ad hoc. This is impromptu homeschooling, which is not the way it's normally done. And as for kids going back to school, sure. And look, there are a lot of very good public schools in the country. We all know that. But there are a lot of bad ones, and people should have choices about what their children learn and where they go to school. And the one-size-fits-all, do what we say or else attitude from the state about public schools is troubling, especially when you see what a massive fiscal burden the teachers, it's really the teachers' unions, but the education budgets, which is largely a slush fund to pay adults, in a lot of these places. I'm not saying the teachers make a lot of money, but there are a lot of administrators and union officials and people like that are also making money that have nothing to do with teachers. I think if you check the statistics, you'd see that over the last 20 years, there has been a 7x increase in our public school system of non-teaching staff. So all kinds of administrators and special assistants and, all this other stuff. So that's why it's become a huge jobs program. A lot of people have these jobs that they really can't get fired from. They've got very cushy benefits, not a huge salary, but some salaries for teaching bureaucrats, not for teachers, it's actually quite high. If you're the superintendent of schools in some districts, you're making a lot of money, actually. You're doing very well. Okay, more roll call here. Chris writes in, Buck, love your podcast. We listen to it here at the detective's office every morning. It's become a morning staple with our standard Black Rifle coffee, even if it is a little bit behind because I listened to it from the day before. Help us out here. We have a running bet regarding producer Mark. Is he for real or is he just doing a shtick? There's no way a 27-year-old millennial could really be as stuffy and weary of the world as this guy. A week's worth of lunches is on the line, and these guys don't order off the kids' menu. Shields high. Producer Mark, I'm gonna let you answer this one.
I read this email. What do you mean I'm stuffy and out of touch with the world? I don't get it. Or weary of the world.
I think they're just asking, is this I guess I have to give the real answer here,
Yeah.
but I wanted to give you a first crack. If you guys are asking if producer Mark that you hear is like the way is actually producer Mark, or if he's doing the answer is yes. That's it. You are hearing producer Mark, and this is how he is, right?
My life is a shtick, Buck.
They're getting pure, unadulterated producer Mark is all we're trying to get to here. You're getting the real deal, folks. No additives, no preservatives, right, Mark?
Yes, I'm organic all the way.
Organic Mark all the way. That's all you need, folks. So there you go. So I guess someone's buying somebody some lunches here. Producer Mark, you're getting the real deal every day.
I hope you're all team producer Mark and half of you aren't mocking me. I'm not really sure how this is working.
Well, no, I think they're all on Team Mark. They just want to know if Mark is a character or if Mark is really Mark. And I'm here to say, no, Mark is really Mark, guys. This is producer Mark. You're getting him, the real deal. And just when I show up, after doing 5 hours of radio many days a week, the first thing I often hear from producer Mark is like, "Oh, you showed up for work today," because I'm usually a little bit late, so I kind of earn it. But nonetheless. That's where we are.
As I've said before, Buck is the only human being who can be late to his own living room.
It's pretty. There's like 20 steps between there and the couch. So 20. David, hey Buck, I've noticed nobody's talking about cryptocurrency anymore. I saw Bitcoin is trading at 7,500. The Dow is bobbing up and down, but pretty healthy considering the circumstances. I'm curious about your thoughts on why crypto isn't moving higher with all the uncertainty that exists. Keep up the great work. Don't let producer Mark beat you up too much. David, I think that's a very good question about crypto because you would think that given all the money printing that's going on, as we know, it's digits on a screen. It's not really printing money. But as that's happening, and you have all of this sense of, where are you gonna have a store of value that's worthwhile? You have not seen. I mean, if crypto doesn't have a spike now, it feels like when is it ever gonna have a spike? Which makes me feel like it really was all. Like they were creating all these different cryptos. I mean, there was a scammy nature to some of it for sure. Blockchain technology is certainly worthwhile and interesting and might have some very, very important uses as a technology in the future. But crypto, as I had friends who were saying, crypto is going to go to 100,000, a Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin will be worth $100,000. I'm going to be super rich. I'm going to retire on this. I mean, look, I'm not giving you advice one way or the other. That's not what I do, but seems pretty dubious to me right now. Producer Mark, did you ever buy any crypto?
No, I didn't have money back then.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
still don't. But
yeah, but that's the crypto thing. Really felt a little bit like people were trying to just play in a craps game or something, or it's just gambling for a lot of folks because no one really understands it, and they just saw it going up and they figured I want to get in on this. But David, it's a great question. I have not read a single good answer as to why. If crypto's not having a big move up now, when is it ever going to have a big move up other than what we saw, which was just a bubble, just like the tulip craze in the Netherlands. It just was a bubble where people were buying crypto. It's going up, so more people buy it because they want to get in on it. Classic herd bubble mentality. Mark writes in, Buck, on Friday's podcast, you mentioned you thought the debates would be better without an audience, but I disagree. You just know Trump will pull Tara Reid front and center in the audience just to rattle Joe, and it will be fantastic. Shields high. Well, Mark, to each his own on this one. You can certainly prefer having an audience. I think Trump is going to bring up the allegations against Joe Biden, and Biden's going to bring up allegations against Trump. So that's something else that we can expect. But, yeah, I just don't like the audience making all that noise and kind of getting in the way and being annoying. So I prefer it without, but if you prefer it with, then that's fine. Tomato, tomato. Some people like chocolate ice cream like me. Some people like strawberry. You know who loves strawberry ice cream, by the way, producer Mark? My parents.
Yeah, you've told that
they
story.
mess with me.
That's
Yeah, I can't believe it.
How are you related to them?
Now I go over there and they're like, yeah, we've got some ice cream in the fridge. I'm like, what do you have? They're like, well, there's the kind you don't like, and then there's a bunch of other things, but we got to check. Makes me sad.
Haven't you
What
been
is
buying their groceries? Do you revolt and refuse to buy them strawberry?
No, I'll get them whatever ice cream they want. I'm a good son.
That is nice of you, even though they're wrong.
I'm good like that. Yeah, no, strawberry's gross. We all know it. But it's all right. Hey, to each his own. If my mom and dad like strawberry ice cream, they're allowed to like strawberry ice cream, but they're still wrong. But I love them. Chad, Buck, the people are claiming to believe the president really meant to cure COVID. We need to inject the disinfectant are the same people that require the warning of hot liquid on the side of their coffee cups. The old adage, there is no dumb question, goes out the window with today's media. They prove that wrong every day. Keep up the good work. Shields high. Chad, agreed. By the way, everyone, check out bucksexton.com. We got stories going up today. We have YouTube clips going up. We got all kinds of fun stuff. Make sure you bookmark it, bucksexton.com. And that's where the one-stop shop for all things Bucktastic. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Shields high.